the 5 disengagement, or, in other parlance, discard triggers. Why do we let you go? Understand, there's no such thing as a discard. That suggests finality. And what we do is we disengage from you. It's temporary. And there is always the risk that we will re-engage with you. That does not mean that we will necessarily suck you back into a formal relationship with us. That does not mean that we will resume being boyfriend and girlfriend, husband and wife, although that often does happen. It may be that we engage with you once again for the purposes of gaining fuel. It may be that we engage with you for the purposes of acquiring a residual benefit in itself or alongside the provision of fuel. But we will re-engage. However, let's not get ahead of ourselves. What is it that causes us to disengage from you in the first place? Remember, your place in the fuel matrix is one of tertiary source, secondary source, which might be non-intimate, or intimate, or primary source, either intimate or non-intimate. To understand more with regard to what those appliances are and where they sit in the fuel matrix, do read my book, Fuel. You will find it both enlightening, interesting, and it will answer many questions that you have. Many of you listening here are likely to be, or have been, intimate partner primary sources. Some of you also may have thought that you were the IPPS, but you're actually a secondary source of an intimate nature, either a shelf or a dirty little secret. Some of you may not have got to the point of intimacy and were non-intimate secondary sources, a friend, a colleague, a family member. And in those circumstances, it's important for you to determine where you fit in the fuel matrix. And that, of course, is something that I can assist you with. Disengagement is applicable to all of those who are in the fuel matrix, but most of all, it is the greatest applicability to the intimate partner primary source. You see, the seduction is mesmerizing, and as part of its allure, we, of course, tell you why we chose you, with 1,000 different sensual sentences. Some may seem over the top, others make sense to you, but either way, you are giving the basis of understanding why we have been drawn to you. We never tell you the real reasons why we chose you. Why? Well, this is because most narcissists don't know what they are, therefore they can't provide you with the real reason that unconsciously drives us. With the creators, we know, but we do not share it with you, because sharing is to cede power to you, and we must never do that. The devaluation of the intimate partner primary source is torturous, horrific, and unpleasant. You're unable to ascertain why we have suddenly knocked you from the pedestal that you once occupied. It's bewildering, it's confusing, and only serves to add to your pain. You may have been given some reasons as to why we treat you so badly, but invariably they make no sense to you. And this is by inherent design, to keep you confused and under control, to keep you where we want you. Reasons may not be given, reasons may be given, and those that are given just don't make sense because of our toxic logic. Then comes the disengagement. And more often than not, you are left sprawled in the dust, exhausted, bereft, and shattered, with no explanation given as to why you have been thrown to one side as we stroll off into the sunset, walking away nonchalantly. Why has it ended so suddenly? What did you do wrong? Why have we not told you why this has happened? The pain of being rejected is magnified by the failure to provide you with any explanation, or any explanation which is credible to you. Naturally, this refusal to explain is part of our inherent design. We have no compulsion to explain because of our sense of entitlement. We do as we want, whenever we choose, and with whomsoever we please, and moreover, our lack of accountability. We are not accountable to anybody, least of all you. We feel no need to give reasons, because in our eyes, You deserve no reasons because you have failed us. We offer no information for you to consider and process because, certainly amongst the lesser of our kind, they do not even know themselves why it's ended, but it had to. This is the way it has to be. There are, however, clear reasons, which are unconscious and hidden to most narcissists, why you are disengaged from. Here are those reasons. Number 1, you have wised up. You have worked out, usually as a consequence of some external assistance, that we have to provoke you and make you react in an emotional fashion. You may not entirely understand why this dynamic occurs. You may not even realise why it's so important to us, but you know that we want to make you react, and you've stopped doing so. Or you stop doing so to such a degree that the little fuel that you provide is really of no use to us. You've learned to respond in an almost neutral fashion. Or you have started to remove yourself from our influence, and thus you are depriving us of our fuel. We apply our machinations in a harsher fashion, increasing the pressure to cause you to react as we feed on our secondary sources instead. But in the meanwhile, your resistance is substantial. You may not have walked away from us and escaped, perhaps because of financial reasons or children, or just the sheer inconvenience of seeking somewhere new to live. But you have turned the tap down, and we instinctively realise that it is not going to be turned back on any time soon. We, of course, do not want to be, and nor can we be, in this weakened state with reduced fuel provision from the primary source. And therefore, we do not wish to apply the energy we need to finding or embedding a new primary source to be used upon trying to squeeze fuel from you when you are no longer the gushing fountain of fuel that you once were. Accordingly, you wising up to our behaviours and reacting in a way which reduces your fuel provision, whether this is conscious or inadvertent, results in your disengagement. Number 2, the new primary source is now in place. This is the most common reason why you are disengaged from. This is the most common reason why we disengage from you as the intimate partner primary source. You are no longer it. We have a new one. When your devaluation occurred, invariably the hunt begins for your replacement. Again, this is an instinctive response of the majority of narcissists. This explains the repeated affairs, and now we have settled on your replacement as the primary source of the prime aims. This person will address our need for fuel, character traits, and residual benefits. He or she has now been seduced, but ultimately embedded into our fuel matrix. We instinctively recognise that they are functioning well, they're under control, and they're pouring forth delicious positive fuel in significant quantities, and in a reliable manner, far better than you. We have been fuelled, of course, by your negative fuel during your devaluation, but now there is no longer any need to keep you in play, now that we have our new, bright and shiny plaything. Thus, onto the scrap heap you go. We will, of course, retain the right to return, should the need arise, for fuel, for character traits and residual benefits at some future point, subject to there being a Hoover trigger and the Hoover execution criteria being met. But for now, it is adios, adieu, auf Wiedersehen, goodbye. 3. You are broken. Although it may seem during your devaluation that we are trying to destroy you, that is actually not the case. The actual destruction of an appliance, particularly the intimate partner primary source, is a rare event and is subject to a malice campaign or sustained malign hoovers, but that is a topic for a different day. Yes, during devaluation, we are driving you downwards through our repeated application of horrible manipulations, but we don't want to finish you off. Just like somebody's head we are holding under water, we will let you surface spluttering and gasping for air by way of a respite period before plunging you into the icy water once again, holding you under. In and out, up and down, push and pull. We will have you bouncing along the bottom, but not quite at rock bottom. Sometimes, of course, our brethren do go too far, and the avalanche of abuse takes its toll on you, resulting in you becoming broken. You're left numb, barely functioning, even hospitalized as a consequence of a breakdown. Thus, you are unable to provide us with fuel, character traits, residual benefits any longer. And unlike the first example detailed earlier in this video, this occasion occurs not by choice, but as a consequence of our behaviour breaking you. Knowing now that you will not provide us with any fuel, we show our callous nature by taking no interest in your broken state, but instead we must go and seek out a new prospect, most likely embedding one that has been cultivated during devaluation, and thus you are disengaged from. Number 4, major exposure. You may have worked us out, but your shock and horror at this, alongside your desire to actually try to help and change us, means you continue to spill out fuel towards us. You've got the knowledge, but you're not applying it effectively, more often than not affected by your emotional thinking, and therefore there's no reason to go elsewhere. You may be trying to tell other people about our terrible behaviours, but we've got in first, launched the smear campaign and maintained the facade. It's business as usual. Occasionally, however, you may just outflank certain narcissists and manage to tell other people what we are like before we can do anything about it. These people may see some incontrovertible evidence that you have obtained. Admittedly, this is usually the case when dealing with the lesser and mid-range of our kind, and therefore these individuals take your side, believe you, and we become the pariah. News then spreads, and those people we thought we could rely on either turn their backs on us, or even worse, take your side. The facade is crumbling. The fuel from those individuals has also stopped, and either the wounding that has occurred, punching great holes in the construct, or the reduction of fuel per se, and the energy required to change other people's minds, with no guarantee of success, becomes too great for the narcissist. There has been an exposure in a major fashion. Rather than face the music and allow ourselves to be destroyed, we instinctively then disengage and drop you like a stone. We saddle up and ride out of town in order to find a new place, which hasn't heard about what we are. Finally, number 5, wounding with intent. You have brought your A game on this occasion. This, of course, is extremely rare because most people do not realise what they're dealing with, and even when they do, their emotional thinking is so high they are unable to approach the matter in the forensic way that is required. Occasionally, however, it can happen, and not only do you know what we are, the revelations that you have been provided with have caused you to now understand how you can seriously hurt us, how you can inflict that mortal wound. You know to turn off the tap, but you now know how to obtain the ultimate revenge against us, and your repeated emotion-free criticisms are launched at us. These criticisms wound us repeatedly, burning and hurting us, and with no way of getting fuel from you, we are being beaten. You have been well schooled by somebody, and applying those learned lessons, you are starting to attack the very pillars of our existence. We are under a serious attack, and fighting back is not an option. We need to flee, and do so quickly. We do not want you any longer. We instinctively recognise we cannot succeed at this moment in time, and therefore we need to beat a retreat, and do so promptly. You don't want to let us off the hook because you want answers and you want to punish us for what we have done to you. You are not going to end our connection. We are not going to hang around in such circumstances, however, and we will disengage from you as we beat that retreat so that we can recover, replenish, and then look to strike back at a later date when your guard may be down. Thus, these are the 5 reasons we disengage from you. The one, which is the most common, is that we have found your replacement. But the fact that you become broken through our behaviour, or you have inadvertently no longer, provided as what I was with, results in a similar situation. It is far rarer for a successful major exposure to take place, and even rarer still for wounding with intent to succeed. But this can happen. Let me emphasize, you should never seek to bring about disengagement yourself. Why? Thinking you can do so is emotional thinking. That means you will just be compelled to go into battle with the narcissist, and rather than expose, you will mess it up. Rather than wound with intent, you will provide us with challenge fuel, which means we're getting what we want, we won't have any need to disengage from you, but you will suffer in return. When you wise up to what you're dealing with, you do not bring about disengagement, because there is no guarantee that you can achieve it. What you can do is guarantee your own actions with reference to yourself. You do not bring about disengagement. You escape. You obey the first golden rule of freedom, which is once you know, you go, you get out, and you stay out.